So now let's talk about Blacklist. You've been on it since season 1. I believe you came in the 3rd episode, right?
Well done. Good trivia.
Thank you. I went all trivia nights. What was it like? What was the audition process like for the Blacklist? And when you went in, you were not a series regular. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, I wasn't in the pilot, so
Right.
Yeah.
What was that audition process like for you?
It's funny. I didn't even want to go in because I had moved to LA at that time for a portion of time. Hi there. We have friends. I had moved to LA for a time and was back in New York shooting a tiny little arc on Girls, which was also enormously exciting at the time because I was a fan of the show and it was a comedy, and I got to do something a little bit different and stuff I always wanted to do. But besides that point show, I happened to be in New York, so it was really sort of timing and fortuitous. And I got an appointment. The character's original name was Morgan Hackett, not Aram, Mushtabai. And it was a small guest star. It was a computer guy. And the only description of his character was he loves his gadgets more than his goatee. So I didn't shave. And I didn't want to go in because there was nothing on the page that was really special about it. It was just a guy delivering some computer information and sort of like I can't remember, like a half a joke, not even, because actually the audition scene was not what they ended up using. They had switched characters for that. And I didn't want to go in. I kind of, there's no small parts, only small actors.
That's right.
Sort of expression. I just felt like there was enough on my reel like that, more than that they could just look at and decide if they want me or not. And then my agent at the time was like, they're like, just go in. This is NBC's hot new show. It hadn't premiered yet, so I didn't even know what the show was. Right. Hot new show. They're buzzed about. They're all excited. And that was the same casting office at the time. It was Christie Street Casting, who had cast me in a series the year before called 0 Hour, an ABC show that didn't really last. And I also was on as a recurring character mid-season, and then it looked like I was going to join the series the following year. So I was really grateful for them for seeing me for that part. That part really was special and dramatic and had a lot of levels and secrets. And I played Carmen Ejogo's husband, and I had scenes with Anthony Edwards and the late, great Michael Nickvest, who I learned a lot from. Sidetrack, sorry.
No, you're good.
And so I've sidetracked so much I forgot my point. Oh, audition for Blacklist. Right.
You brought it back. You're good.
So I remember that they had done that. So I was like, they really honored me and saw some stuff in me that maybe I don't always get a chance to be seen for if I'm typecast. They weren't typecast, so let me honor them. They've given me an appointment. It's a real honor. It's a lottery ticket to get an appointment, or It's a gift. And I think no actor should take that for granted. Just getting an appointment is such a challenge. And so I'll go in. I'm going back to LA. I think there was probably like, whatever, I'm really not vested in this. I don't think much of it. It was an FBI character on an FBI show, so I was like, it could recur maybe, and then I could come back to New York a couple times and see my friends if I. It's really all that. But I remember preparing for it, and I was like, well, I learned it, and I was like, anyone can do this. Any sort of competent actor can do this. So what can I do that makes me enjoy it? I was like, I am going to do what I never get to do. I'm going to have as much fun with this as I can. Maybe I'll improv. I'm going to bring as much humor. I just was like, otherwise it's just information. He's a guy delivering information, which you can, that those characters get sprinkled around those FBI shows all the time as co-stars, as guest stars. So I went in, and I remember going, and there was every type there, every ethnicity, tall, short. It was all ages. I was like, they don't know what they want. They're looking at everything. And I went in. It was the one scene. And the director was Michael Watkins, which is really key because he then ended up taking over as the producing director of the show. So he became a sort of a lead producer at the time. And I went in, and it's a testament. I was leaving town. I wasn't vested in it. I didn't care that much. I cared to do a good job because of pride in your work.
Absolutely.
And I I remember doing it and just having fun. And I remember the reader kind of jumped a line or went up and was like, oh, and she was about to start. I was like, it's okay, we're downloading. Hold on. Just improv.
Yeah.
And I was like, take the mistake and make it a golden egg or something.
Absolutely.
And they started laughing, and I was like, okay, and did something, and I don't even remember. I just did everything that was written and threw a couple of sprinkles of and the director was like, there's somebody with a personality. That's it. We have a point of view or something like that. And he says, for my money, I'd like you to get it, but we got to get signatures from the studio and the network, so who knows? Hopefully, I went up and
That's nice feedback to get in an audition room.
had a great chance. I was like, oh, this is a great chance. And then I remember being like, I'm flying back to LA. Took 2 weeks to find out. I actually had another audition at that casting office like 2 weeks later, and I was like, I guess I didn't get it. And okay, and it was for a movie, and I go into the audition, and the casting director was like, so you're gonna be on NBC? I was like, what? She's like, yeah, you're gonna be on Blacklist. I was like, it's like, oh, they're just an executive is on vacation that they just need a signature for, but everyone's approved you. I was like, so there was an executive be sitting on their desk and was gone for all this time.
Oh my God.
And I was like, oh, and I was like, but then my Murphy's Law thing, I was like, he's not gonna sign it. I'm not getting it. He's gonna want somebody else.
She just jinxed it.
And then and then it started. It was supposed to be one episode, and then am I talking too much about this?
Of course not.
Okay.
That's why I asked you the question.
When I shot it, Michael Watkins, this is funny, the scene that I auditioned for wasn't in that script. And the script had a lot of, the character was Wu Jing, and there was a lot of East Asian characters in that episode, story-wise. And I got the script, and I didn't see the character of Morgan Hackett's name in there. And I was so I was looking, and I didn't get it. I was like, I know I'm not any of these East Asian characters. And I'm looking through the script, and I don't see that scene. I was like, who? They gave me the wrong script. I'm not in it. They wrote me out. There's some mix-up.
You've already been fired. You haven't even started yet.
And I look at all this. I'm not the series regular. So then I'm like, what other men are there? I read the women, and there was like 2 other guys besides the regulars, the East Asian characters, and the women. There was like 2, and there were 2 names. And one was very generic, like John Smith, and the other one was Aram Moshebai. I was like, I have a feeling I'm probably Aram. Looked it up, and it was a computer guy. And I remember going to set, and the director was there. He's like, I'm glad you're here. I told these guys, they need someone like you on the show. I told them to name him Amir to be like you, so they named him Aram. It's very encouraging that they're like, they wanted him to be like me, so I kept doing. I had fun, and they did not yell cut once. I remember Parminder and Diego had to run out of the room. I gave them a location, and they didn't yell cut. They ran out of the room, and they're still rolling. So I knew that they can cut right there at any moment they wanted. So I kept going, and I started improvising, and and then I even made myself laugh. I was like, and then when the episode came out, they kept it. And I remember being like, told them, I was like, this is a network drama, and I'm making jokes. And I was told from that improv, the writers were like, oh, this guy can be funny, or we can write to that. And then all of a sudden I started coming back, and I started seeing jokes in my most natural rhythm and humor, and I was like, this is the miracle people talk about. And I was getting on a plane the next day. I had fun. I was so not attached to any aspect of it, and then it turned out to be the biggest job of my life.
Well, you need that lightheartedness also to go with the serious nature of the show. It's the same thing like Blind Spot, where they have Ashley Johnson and Anna Sesmer kind of doing the same thing. You can't help but laugh.
Me and Ashley Johnson are always kind of like, we don't really know each other, but message on social media, because we have similar functions on each show. It's funny, she's amazing.
Yeah, they're both great at what they do, as are you. So what has been the most challenging part of playing Aram?
Good question. There are a few challenges. I would say I would say 2. The most overarching challenge is, playing a character for 6 years. I've changed as a person in 5-6 years and grown. So has a character, and they've really given him a beautiful. They've written to me in all kinds of great stories. But also we also do the cases each week, and so there's the primary function of presenting cases, solving cases, resolving cases. on the procedural side of it, besides the kind of storyline, ongoing storylines with Red and Liz and the subplots that Aram might have with Samar, etc. So making sure that a character continues to be the same, but also grow. And some scripts are about other things, so you're maybe a script that is not an Aram focused episode. It's just Aram does his function of case solving. It might have a joke here or there. It's really doing making sure that it is imbued with everything that has happened before, especially if something dramatic has happened or something really sensitive has happened, or he has a sort of an issue with another, the dynamic is shifted. Making sure that that's present in what is not written about in that moment. We're just doing a case, but knowing that I have this going on with this character, and sometimes they'll give jokes to that, but sometimes so I remember one of the hardest things I've ever done in the series was after quote unquote Liz, died. It was not a real death, but as far as Aram concerned, she was dead.
Right.
And we went to her funeral, and he had smoked a joint, and he had cried, and then a eulogy, and then we had to go back to work. And I remember how do you go back to work after getting high?
Right.
And crying and going to one of your best friend's funeral? I was like, I can't imagine. I would take off. I don't know who has to go back to work.
Yeah.
That to me was and I had to present case and do case. And I remember working forever on that to find a way and a reason to kind of march forward. And he's had to do that in different ways, but it's usually the next day or the next episode. That to me was bizarrely the hardest. I mean, there's obviously the scenes where you fighting for someone's life, and crying and running and stunts, and those are hard in a different way. I would say those are hard because how can you prepare for putting yourself in it? You can only imagine. You can prepare your lines. You can prepare your thoughts, the history, your tactics, all that stuff. But then you only can be in that moment, which you can only sort of live in the moments, explosions and runs and tears, and you just have to trust that if you've done your work, you'll fall forward and something will work. But with experience and time, that becomes less of a stressor, as it much was a much bigger stressor when I was a younger actor. So I would argue that the hardest is sort of the long form of keeping your job consistent, but at the same time evolving in a way. I would say, and especially downloading cases, because those are harder to memorize because it's a lot of information. It's not like question and answer back and forth.
Right.
And imbuing that with life, both from the show, and if there's nothing going on, maybe major, imbuing it with point of view and making it kind of live. If it's just a case, I might be like, it's a natural disaster and Aram is a huge environment. I'll just create in my mind, he's a huge environmentalist and this is personal or something, or he, or something. Or if there's a techie, he's like, he knows all about that. So he's excited by the case. And it's just kind of try to fill it with, all the stuff that you can that's not on the page. And, I think that's part of our job as an actor.
And what can you tease without having a bag and being over your head and having another death scene about season 7 and your character?
Season 7, I have no idea.
Sorry, season 6.
So I think season 6, episode 10 has aired, 9 or 10. I think 10.
Yeah.
And we have obviously 12 more to go to air. And
just a small tease. Don't go.
I won't.
Don't give too much.
Oh, I know how to keep my job. Oh boy.
I don't want the actor audience to be the reason you are no longer in season 7.
I'll be calling you. I'll be like, can you edit minute 17 out, please?
We're at 37 minutes, so that'll be your key to tell me what.
37 minutes. Okay. Here's your book. I'll write that down. So there's 12 more to go to air. We're shooting. I'm about to start shooting episode 20. So I have 3 more to shoot. We're in the middle of shooting 19. I have 3 more to shoot. So from what's aired to now, a lot happens. A lot. There's a big thing with the Red Liz storyline coming up in the next 2. And I would argue the next 5 episodes coming literally starting this Friday for the next 5.
Tonight, starting.
Through, I would say, 11, 12, 13, 14, is an enormous arc that starts for Aram that was especially 13, 14, 15, with 14 being a game-changing episode, 13, 14, and 15 being like the hardest I've worked. 14 and 15 probably 2 of the hardest I've worked ever in my career on anything. I mean, there's always an episode every season where Aram kind of has to go all out and gets to be in the A storyline and really push myself as an actor. And I would argue that would be that episode. So the next 5 are. I'm not going to tease anything. They're
That's good. No, that's
crazy.
That is, you did the tease. That's the tease.